It's very easy. You just have to go to, you just have to grab your phone, go to menti.com. You see here at the top of the screen, menti.com, and you are gonna ask for a code. The code is 652509, and then there's gonna appear some question on your phone, directly on your phone, and we're gonna see live the answers. So, for example, we have a first.
Let me just repeat, Ricardo. So, for those of you who just arrived, we are right now just testing our way of get some answers from you, the participants. So, grab your smartphone, go to menti.com, and use 652509, and yeah, and then you can go ahead and answer the questions. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Yes. So the first question is just to know each other, and is where do you come from? So here we are gonna see. So as always, we have a lot of international people. Okay, great. So
and I can see that I know that Kei Hareyama from Japan is also there. So we also have Japan in there somewhere. Good. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Great. So now we know how the tool is working, and during the webinar we are going to run other web Mentimeters. So please take your phone with you. And yes, so now Rasmus, the floor is you, and you can introduce all the speakers.
Grazie, Ricardo. Thank you everyone for tuning in to this extra edition of This is CBN, the Creative Business Network. We've been running these webinars mainly on Wednesdays in the morning, where we target Europe, Africa, and Asia, and in the afternoon, where it's for Europe, Africa, and the Americas. So you can understand it will be a focus on startups and participants from the Americas this afternoon. And it's a special edition also because it's a special subject. Creative Business Network is very much about co-creation. We get the ideas and the content and the what we talk about and what we care about from our network. And this was actually Luis Salazar, our partner in Peru, who is also going to be co-hosting this webinar, who came up to us and said, we have so many startups and we have so many good projects on social inclusion. Let's do a webinar on it. So we will. And we are doing it right now, but we will also do a follow-up during the Bright 2020. It's in a couple of weeks, from the 29th of June to the 3rd of July. There will be a series of online events, webinars, networking, etc. There will be a fireside chat with the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, and there will be a lot of other interesting stuff going on that week. So, but also we're going to revisit social inclusion also during that week. So we started a little bit late. Sorry again for the technical problems. We have a great group of speakers. The main speaker co-host, I'm very happy, is Luis Salazar. He's the partner at Investa and is also the guy who runs Creative Business Cup Peru. Maybe you just want to raise your hand, Luis, so we can see where you are. Yeah, there you are. Good. And then we have Fiorella Torres on help, also from Peru. You're there. Raise your hand so we can see you. Good. Excellent. And then we have, you've already joined us. That's really good. From Finland, Mervi Pankalainen from Mighty Fire. She was CBC Creative Business Cup Finland 2017 participant. Are you there with, yes, excellent. Hyvä. And then we have from Denmark, Steffen Kappelgaard, who represents Bitter Dwarf. Are you there? Yes, excellent, good. And then last but not least, we have an expression in Danish, the raisin at the end of the sausage. It's kind of saving the best for last, I don't know, but we have Melinda Epler. She's the CEO of Change Catalyst, and you can see an excellent TED Talk with her if you want, but you can also listen to her here and ask her questions directly here at the webinar. This is CBN. So now you're all introduced, and now I'll give the word, thank you, Melinda. I give the word to Luis. So you need to unmute yourself first, or I can try and see if I can do it. There we go.
Sorry. Hello. Thanks for inviting me, Rasmus and Ricardo. I'm very glad to be here. This is a subject that I think it's very relevant for these moments, especially in these moments where we've become more aware of the importance of social inclusion. A lot of people in the world after this pandemic will be without proper employment. We've seen that our health system is not inclusive enough. We are dealing with problems of loneliness. Education is no longer the same, and this subject is getting more and more relevant every day. I believe that this is the point where we need to change as a society for the next years. And some companies, some startups have been already doing this for some years. Creative economies represent around 6.1% of the GDP in average worldwide. And in some countries or in some cities even more. For example, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, it's over 10% of the GDP of the city. It's an industry that moves $4.3 billion a year and over 700 million exports. Companies like Cirque du Soleil employ over 5,000 people and sell over $800 million. There's a huge potential in creative industries that it hasn't been exploded yet. I believe that
Luis, isn't it also, now you gave us a lot of figures, don't you also think that the creative industries actually touches the heart and actually nourishes the soul? The music industry, the visual arts, etc. So it's more than numbers. It's also, there's lots of non-market values to the culture.
Exactly. I believe that one of the greatest thing about creative industries is that they go beyond the money. It helps you create identity, culture, inclusion, and we are a mega diverse world. I mean, I can try to copy someone in Botswana or in Moldova, and I will never succeed. I can imitate them, but I will never copy their culture. So we are a mega diverse world, and in this diversity, there's a huge potential. And I believe this is one of the most interesting things about creative industries. We are able to suck some of the energy of other countries and try to take the good thing for us and apply what is useful and try to tropicalize it into our own ecosystem. Well, especially where I come from in Latin America, we are multi-diverse. The social pyramid is not as in Europe. So creative industries help inclusion in a much powerful way than it does in other countries. So this is a subject that is especially interesting for me because of that. So with this, I would like to pass the word through to the next speaker. Fiorella. That is Fiorella from ON Help, from Peru, actually.
Awesome. I'm going to. That's it. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Fiorella, and I'm co-founder of On Help, and we disrupt the donation system. And the next slide, if you can. Oh, it's not working. Well, I can pass the slide, or Someone is sharing this. Well, anyway, I wanted to show you actually a picture of this little kid named Jose, who finally has access to safe drinking water thanks to the NGO Isla de Paz. However, 1 out of 4 people in Peru don't have access to safe drinking water. And even worse, this NGO, as 10 million others, don't have, are lacking funds. So do you imagine being able to donate to this NGO, but without giving money, but with just a click? And this is how Unhealth was born. You just need to access into a web page, select the project you want to help, and click on the donate button. And all this without giving any kind of information or money. You can use your device without any problems. You can access to a spreadsheet, you can watch Netflix, anything you want. And all this works while you click on the donate button. All the time that passes by, we convert it into money. And the net effect in your device is almost imperceptible and is close to a Facebook app related to battery or even internet. So the classic question that everybody asks us is, how does it really work? So it works through a crypto mining system, and it's simpler than it looks. So imagine a cryptocurrency as a code. So they don't have anyone behind it, no company, no central bank. So in order to be sustainable, they need someone to be checking everything is working fine. And that's what we do. And we get rewarded in cryptocurrencies for doing that job. The problem is that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people around the world are doing the same task. So in order to decide who gets this reward, they say you have to find additional for doing the maintenance work, you have to find a random number. That could be 1, 2, 3, but obviously it's going to be harder than that. So what your device do when you click on the, and that's when you click on the donate button, is actually thinking random numbers, and you send them to us. So it's like a spreadsheet, that random formula that you refresh it and you will see random numbers, the same thing, and you send them to us. So we check if that's the correct number and we can get the reward. So as more people donate us hours, we have a higher probability of finding that that correct number that allow us to get the cryptocurrencies. And there are different exchanges, as you all know, the exchanges between euro dollar. There are crypto exchanges related to cryptos to dollar or cryptos to euro. So our main value relies in 2 main things: the correct selection of cryptocurrencies and to minimize the commissions when you have the cryptocurrencies till you get the traditional money. So right now we're focusing in a B2B model in improving the corporate social responsibility areas of big corporation and improving the client-employee engagement in social impact. I want to tell you also that we have obtained several awards from the Green Latam Awards 2019 or 2020. We even got selected, we won the TNW Ignite Challenge. So we went to the last TNW conference. We got funds from Startup Chile, like 10 million Chilean pesos. We even got second place in the Fino Summit, like the biggest event in FinTech. And this challenge was called FinTech for Inclusion. We even got to Startup Bootcamp, and we even had the opportunity to do our pitch in the last UNESCO conference in Paris. So right now, I want to say a lot of things about a project we're doing inside of Unhealth. And I want, if you can change the slide till not the last one, but the previous one to that, because I want to show you a project we're doing called Al Toque. That means right now or really fast. That we all know we're facing one of the most, like the worst global crisis. And we identified that a problem we're facing in Peru and also in the whole world also is fake news. Because they are spreading even faster than the virus itself, and you can have a lot of negative impact with that. Not even related to the measures taken in order to contain the virus, but also our health and our health of our physical health or mental health. So that's why we created on Al Toque, and it's a project that fight against misinformation and fake news. And I want to show you this, the first infographic we'll publish that was a little bit more than a month ago. And is related, I'm sorry that it's in Spanish, but it's that the violence is not in quarantine. And just want to show you some data that it's during the quarantine till the end of April, there are more than 200 rape cases, and there's a lot of cases that are not even reported, and 62 of them were related to little girls. So what we want to do is to expose this information, because if you don't identify a problem, we want the government or anyone is going to take measures in order to change that horrible situation. If you can go to the last slide, please. So right now, I want to invite you all to scan this QR code or go to the unhelp.pe webpage and start donating hours. And if you are a big corporation trying to improve your corporate social responsibility areas, you can contact me. And Unhelp allows anybody to donate without giving money or any kind of information, but with just a click. So thank you all.
Luis?
Yes, I believe we're going to the questions afterwards.
Yeah, we can also ask. We can ask one or two questions. I would like to ask just a quick one here. Did you say that you also were invited to the UNESCO conference, Fiorella?
Yeah, actually, I was selected as one of the 60 young leaders to go to the UNESCO Youth Forum. So we were inside of the UNESCO conference. It was held in November.
That's for actors in the cultural sector. And we heard also about fintech for inclusions and all kind of. So are you an art project, or are you what, or does it matter?
Yeah, it's because as it's not a usual project. We are all sometimes like qualified for like a fintech, sometimes like a social responsibility or sustainable startup. So that's why we really take advantage of that thing, and we got the opportunity to participate in different kind of events. In Mexico was always related to fintech. UNESCO, obviously, we had some interactions before because we won also a challenge in Latin America called Comprometidos. I got the opportunity to go to Buenos Aires and meet the people from UNESCO, and that's why they nominated me because the way it works is that there are different regional offices. They nominate you, and the Paris committee select the people that are going to go to the UNESCO Youth Forum. So I went last year, and yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Amazing presentation. Sorry, Luis, for just, it's always good to, with a few clarifying questions at the end. We can always, I think we have time for that, but it's true, we are already at 4:30. So yes, let's move on.
Okay, so the next speaker, it's Mary, and she will present Mighty Fire.
Yes, and we have a Mentimeter question now before the presentation of Mary.
So go to grab your smartphone, go to menti.com and use the code 652509.
And please, Mary, you can start also commenting the Mentimeter.
This is super interesting. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting. Can't wait to see the results come in. So the key word here is really appreciation. And probably everybody knows that there's a lot of research regarding happiness at work. And appreciation turns out to be the #1 criteria, actually. So I have to congratulate all of these. There's a majority on strongly agreeing that they are getting appreciated and support by their team members. I'm very happy for you. Because when we think about salary increase, there's about a 3-month impact with that. So don't waste your money on salary increases for your teammates. That looks really good. So what we are talking about, and thank you for that Mentimeter. So if you can get the first slide in, thank you. Our starting point is really the basic need for us humans to be valued and appreciated by other people as we are, just as we are today. And COVID-19 has really highlighted this need for relationships. We need others to flourish. We're nothing alone. Can I get the next slide, please? So when we take this so-called job happiness to children's context, their work is actually school. And of course, we want them to learn there. And children really need the appreciation from their classmate, because it really boosts their intrinsic motivation to learn. Imagine coming to school and feeling scared or feeling isolated. We can't really expect you to be creative. We can't expect you to learn anything. So what we are saying is that then time spent in schools is wasted. So you need to build the appreciation, the psychological safety first, the social, emotional well-being first, and then you can deliver on the learning outcomes. Without that mental well-being, we are working on a very narrow context when it comes to academic content. Next slide, please. So please have a look at this list. Our way of teaching appreciation is teaching kids how to recognize each other's character strengths and really appreciate each other through these strengths. So I want to first highlight just what a matter of life and death we're sort of talking about here. If you quickly look through the list and think about yourself, what really gets you energized? What really tells about you? What is the strength that you really get a lot of feedback from other people? Comes naturally to you. So everybody has now one in their heads, right? And next, if I tell you that you are not allowed to use that strength anywhere in the next 30 days, not in any interaction, not in any communication, how would that make you feel? Really empty, right? It's not you anymore. So these strengths are critical, that we are being recognized and we are able to demonstrate these. So these are basically universal. We all have them. And we can't say that curiosity would be more important than leadership. The main thing here is these all can be developed. So it's all about growth mindset for children as well. If I would say that, for instance, myself, humility has always been at the bottom of my strengths. Not a weakness, it's a strength, but it's on the bottom. So I am aware of it, and I can actually do conscious actions to develop it. So that's something that kids can do when they plan this together with their teachers and parents. Next slide, please. So in essence, we support schools to track and make data-driven plans to promote students' mental well-being and character development. The core element is really these character strength profiles. When kids recognize each other's strengths, all those messages build up, and they will actually have statistics to see how, for instance, their creativity has developed over the past 3 months or 1 year. And also all these detailed messages, how they have demonstrated a specific strength at a time. Another big feature is the tracking tools. So teachers are able to follow, for instance, emotional well-being, schoolwork anxiety, relationship development, and get alerts if there is some worrisome result somewhere. And then they can tackle that issue through our pedagogical material bank. Next slide, please. So regular mindifying in classes, as we say, increases self-awareness and classroom spirit, and also it decreases bullying. And through alerts, teachers are able to see if anyone is at the risk of being isolated already. But I really wanted to highlight these two results for you. So growth mindset and sense of belonging. And this is a group from last Q4, which we were following closely. It's approximately 500 students. And already in 5 weeks, we were amazed to see that there's a big increase in how students believe in themselves, the growth mindset, and also on the sense of belonging. And now during this COVID-19, especially this sense of belonging has become extremely important. Kids are at home, learning remotely, and they really miss their friends. So these strength messages from child to another child has become really critical. And we're hearing a lot of stories where parents are actually calling the teacher in the evening saying that, today my child was unable to join, but can you still include him to the round? Because they want to see these messages coming from other kids. So we are talking about a very critical thing, building appreciation for each other. I can't really see anything more important to teach our kids nowadays. So thank you so much, and remember to appreciate each other.
Thank you, Mary. I can see in the chat that we already have, we can take a quick question from Anna Borodina, who is here somewhere. You want to ask the question yourself, Anna? If you can, I can't see you, but I will say your question. It is, do you have any program to develop creativity in school? Please show. Thanks. So it's for you, Mary. I don't know, I should answer on your behalf, but it seems like if you feel more confident and you feel better about yourself, you would also be more creative.
You're absolutely right, Rasmus.
Oh, there's Anna. There's Anna. Yeah. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hello. It's a good question, actually, because we have in Ukraine a distance learning, and many people, many school kids are very tired from that. And when we start with some creativity program, we see that it is a little bit relaxed for them. And I'm just asking from this community, yes, do you have any good examples of these creativity programs that help kids to really pass this crisis?
Why don't we let, we can, if we know, any of us know of any programs that can increase creativity besides feeling good, we can write them in the chat, and we can also send them afterwards. Because thank you for the question, Anna, and we will. It's slightly off from Melby's presentation, so I will actually ask Stefan Kappelgaard from Bittertorf to take the stage. Oh, we have a compliment from Stefan too.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can everybody see my screen, or can somebody confirm?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay, I am Stefan Kappelgaard. I am the CEO at Bittertorf, and this is my Twitter handle, the Boon Lord. So real quick on our studio, we are Danish, we are Copenhagen based. We are a game studio, meaning that we make digital games such as for PC, Xbox Mobile, and things like that. We have 30 people, and we are on a venture route, meaning that we raise venture capital and have so far raised 8.1 million US to fund the things that we do. But this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to save millions of people from dying, basically. And we do that by working with the issue of loneliness, which has been identified as the next public health epidemic of the 21st century. Loneliness is more serious than a lot of people think. It is associated with 26% increased mortality rate. This is the equivalent of smoking something like 15 to 20 cigarettes, which is also, as you know, very lethal. So it's a serious thing to suffer from. And more people than you might think is suffering from loneliness, maybe not in this crowd, because it seems like you're well aware about it, but especially in the developed countries, such as Western Europe, US, even China now, and other places where it's really developed, where people are less in need of each other, can stay in their homes and don't need a family to actually exist and so on. And that's one of the issues that lead to it, but also that you relocate much more for careers. So you're moving from a friendship circle, you rip that apart, and you need to go and form new friendships to avoid loneliness. And it's just a new thing that has started to happen within the last couple of centuries. As an example, in US, only half has meaningful in-person social interactions on a daily basis, and that's definitely leading to increased loneliness rates. It is on the rising agenda, or a rising agenda in some countries, where we see UK appointing a specific minister for loneliness last year, but other countries are potentially tackling it differently, where, for instance, Shanghai is kind of on a mission to become a city without human contact, where you go into a karaoke bar and it is a one-person booth. It is directly accommodating the loneliness, so to say, or the individuality. And the same with the one-person restaurants, for instance. All of these concepts are booming there, and so is shopping, for instance, where there's zero personnel, even in toy stores and things like that. You dress up and you buy it at an AI, basically. But it is not necessarily only up to the governments to help or change this, as providing politicians to focus on it. I think definitely tech can do it. Because loneliness is reducible or even curable by ongoing connection with people sharing similarities, which is often what friends are. But they need to have certain similarities. You can have lots of friends or even be connected with a lot of people, but if you don't really share anything with them, you may still suffer from loneliness, and you may even do that even if you have similarities as well. But that's the really bottom end curve. A lot of it can be fixed with the ongoing connection. So we believe games are the absolute perfect vehicle for solving this issue on a mass scale, much more than almost everything else. And that is by applying the kind of fundamentals of creating friendships, which we are adding to games. And you could say that only part of these has been accidentally almost added to games, and it hasn't really been the focus of any game yet to directly go in and do that. It is more a icing on top of the cake. And especially the last part, disclosure, is not a big part of it. But let me quickly give you an example here. So to create a friendship, you need proximity, that is being close to another person. If you're not close in any way, then you cannot create a friendship. But a headset has proven to be almost as efficient as physical communication. Similarity, that is, the more that we look like each other or similar interests, the more we are inclined to become friends. And games can, on a mass scale, figure out interests and pair up people who have similarities. And they already have the game in common, which is the equivalent of a hobby, like finding badminton players with even more similar interests together. Then the third part is the engine of creating friendships is reciprocity. It is kind of doing actions between each other, and the more trust they require, the more friendships they form. So if I were to loan out my kid or ask one of you to take care of my kid, that would be a big trust factor. If you do that well, our friendship is definitely given a big boost. But if you lose my kid, then it might have a detracting point from our friendship. The last thing is disclosure, and this is where games are not doing it so well, because a lot of the really popular games are, for instance, oriented around 5-person groups, and you cannot really achieve disclosure in much more than 2 or 3 people. So this is where you share vulnerabilities, you share that you have issues with your husband, for instance, or your wife, or your kid, or whatever, and it is taboo subjects that you wouldn't share with everybody. And if you start getting to a point where people do this, for instance, online or to somebody, this is where you create close friendships. So you basically need to go through all these and maintain 50 hours of that between 2 people to create a casual friendship, or 200 and above to create an intimate friendship. That's what we're doing, and it's basically our purpose in Betadorf. Thank you.
Please. Thank you very much. I believe that there's one more Mentimeter question before we pass to
we are gonna run the Mentimeter after Melinda presentation or during the Melinda presentation. So we can just start with Melinda, and you can present Melinda.
Okay, Melinda, she's going to, Melinda is TED speaker. She's from San Francisco. She works with inclusion for every kind of community. And she's going to be our next speaker. She sees underrepresented people, not just blacks or Latins, but also indigenous people with disabilities, sex preference, etc.
Thank you. So I want to say a few words before I introduce my work and before I introduce the poll. Hi, everyone. I want to take a moment to recognize the important time that we're in right now. In addition to COVID-19, we are dealing with, we are working through as a world and as a country here in the United States. I'm based in San Francisco. A lot of issues that are important that we need to address. And I'm in San Francisco now, where there have been protests happening outside my apartment for a week and a half. And today, George Floyd will be buried. Personally, just so you know how this affects people, I'm afraid for my friends and my family who are Black in the United States. My husband, who is Black, when he walks out the door, I worry about his safety, and so does he. And when he goes for a motorcycle ride, I fear for his life, not because he might crash in a motorcycle accident, but because he might get pulled over by police and shot. We don't value Black bodies, let alone Black minds and innovation. And I want to ask this community, what does that do to social innovation and inclusion? And I want to make very clear that this week and every time there's a police killing or a killing of a Black person in the United States, people are not just protesting and angry about one death. The one death is a tragedy, and we've seen several over the last couple of weeks: George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, Ahmaud Arbery. They're protesting and angry about centuries of systemic racism and injustice. That's generations, that's 400 years. And we are still overcoming a time when our European ancestors enslaved African people. So this is not just a US problem, this is an issue around the world. I know that this is not expected, but I want to take a few seconds of silence to just recognize the thousands of people who have died here in the US and around the world. That's an uncomfortable thing to address these issues, and it's also uncomfortable to sit in silence, and that's the point, and this is the work. So please just give I'm just gonna take a moment of silence here to just recognize and reflect and honor. Okay, thank you. So in transparency, yesterday I said yes to speaking today, and then learned there were no Black entrepreneurs speaking. And I talked with a team, the CBN team, and they worked on it, but unfortunately it was too late to find someone. So I agreed to do this anyway, so that I could address some important issues. The folks who have pitched today are doing amazing and important work, and this is a conversation about social inclusion, where representation definitely matters and diverse innovation matters. So imagine if we're leaving out whole cultures from our innovation, as well as the economic wealth generated from entrepreneurship. I'm gonna quickly move through some of my slides that I had to introduce my work, so that we can kind of get to the heart of what needs to happen in terms of change. But could we really quickly just have people answer the poll and maybe add to the poll as I'm talking and kind of working through my slides in the interest of time? Will that work?
Or go to menti.com again.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. So if you all could answer the poll, and then we'll come back to it at the end. So I am the founder and CEO of of Change Catalyst, and I'm a diversity and inclusion speaker, writer, and advocate, and work on creating inclusive tech ecosystems through systems design, storytelling, community building, and behavior change. And my company works on inclusive tech ecosystems. We do that through consulting and training, through startup programs and resources, and we have a series of events around the world. Here's just some of the areas that we impact. We've had in the last 6 years, we've had 52 events. We have reached 54 countries around the world. And just some of our global partners that we've worked with over the years around in the tech ecosystem. So when we started doing this work, we really looked at the whole tech ecosystem. How do we solve this problem of diversity and inclusion? And it really is an ecosystem problem. And many of you on this call are from different pieces of this ecosystem, from entrepreneurship, and that includes investors, startups, accelerators, incubators, as well as the workplace, education, it starts there. Policy, the policies that we put into place to hold people accountable, and also the policies around access to capital. And then the storytelling and media, the stories that we tell, and who gets to tell those stories, and what do those stories look like, and then the ecosystem builders, which is also a lot of the people on this call as well. So I'm going to focus on entrepreneurship here. Just 1% of venture capital in the United States flows to Black founders. And just for perspective, there are 13% or 14%, depending on the data you look at, are of the United States population is Black. 2% of venture capital flows to women-led companies. And again, 51% of the population is women. And then just 0.2% flows to Black women founders. And by contrast, 14% of startups are founded by Black founders, and 35% of startups are founded by women. And 20% of those are Black women, 17% are Latina, and 1.7% are Native women. So there's obviously an imbalance here in venture capital. So how do we change this? The first thing is that there are a lot of people on this call that are not in Silicon Valley. And what we've seen over and over again is that in ecosystems around the world, startup ecosystems around the world, people are trying to replicate Silicon Valley. And this is Silicon Valley. Don't replicate this, okay? We need to do better in our different tech in our different startup ecosystems. So rethink Silicon Valley. So 5 things for you to do. 1, invest in Black founders. Find your gaps and your knowledge and your networks, because that is key. Often we say that there's a pipeline problem, and it's not. As you've seen, there are a lot of Black founders, and that means we have to look harder for them, because they're not necessarily in networks that we normally have. Also, our processes, our outreach systems, our outreach processes, our screening, our due diligence, our decision-making, all of that can be very biased and exclusionary. And so we need to rethink those systems with a new lens of inclusion. The second is to hire diverse people. So in venture capital in the United States, just 2% of Black people are in senior positions at venture capital firms. And obviously that's a problem, because we tend to trust and invest in people who are like us. So that means changing that. Hiring partners, associates, interns, apprentices, sourcers, advisors, board members who are from underrepresented backgrounds. The third is that it can't just be something that you say in a statement. It has to be a top business goal. It doesn't work if you don't make it a top business goal. People need to prioritize it throughout your organization. So that means not performative, not just making a statement, not just saying it's important to you, but really doing the work. And that means setting goals, setting timelines, and a strategy, and then holding people accountable across your organization. So the fourth is that recognize that traditionally excluded founders have different needs, because the reality is that we have had a system that has excluded a lot of people. And so years and years and decades of exclusion means that they don't have, often underrepresented founders don't have access to the same networks, to the same funding, which means even that you have to, if you're working on investment, or if you're working if you have a startup program for underrepresented founders, you have to build venture capital for them. You have to work harder to get other investors to invest in them as well. Role models, and then knowledge of venture capital just in general because of the lack of access. And then last is allyship. All of us have to be allies and really build our empathy skills, which means listening, which means learning. And then the allyship part of that is that we have to take action. So just so you know, we have a allyship series weekly. It's something we just do and have been doing for the last 2 months during COVID, just to build more empathy and understanding, and then allyship for underrepresented people. And then also, as Rasmus said, that I have a TED Talk on allyship as well. So lots of resources for learning more. We also have some toolkits on our website specifically around building inclusive startup ecosystems. And feel free to contact me if you want to learn more.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you very much. And thank you also for the pause that was necessary and needed. We have about 3 minutes left, but here we have the result of the Mentimeter.
Awesome. And so it looks like there are folks that are actually working to create change in the industry, which is great. It'd be awesome to have everybody on this call starting to work in the industry, but of course, start at home first.
Can you maybe give us one piece of advice? Often we get the argument that, for example, that the CEO of Y Combinator and the former CEO of Airbnb, Michael Seibel, I believe is his name, is African American. So what's the problem? I remember once I was checked by the police on a train going from Brussels to Paris. Checked me, and then they checked all the blacks in the train. And when one of the women started complaining, the police said, "Well, we also checked the blonde guy there," as an excuse. So how do we avoid this? But we got a woman on our board. We got the HR director. So how do we really make people understand it's systemic and not just hiring a woman?
There are a couple of things I want to say. One is that if you're on a train and that happens and you're there as a white man, then you speak up, because it's much more powerful when you speak up, right? That's our job. We need to correct this at that level as well as at the bigger macro level. It does take one person at a time stepping up and getting uncomfortable, because your risk of injury, your risk is much lower if you're a white man saying something like that, and your voice, unfortunately, is more powerful, and that privilege is real. The second is that you asked two things. One is that we can't let organizations get away with saying, well, we have one woman, we have one Black person. That is tokenism, and that doesn't set that person up for much success either. As a general rule, is the rule of threes. So 3, not 1, 3. When you're hiring as well, look at 3 underrepresented people when you're hiring before you make that final decision. 3 people.
Thank you. We are listening towards 5 o'clock, and Luis said you have a comment or?
Yes, we don't have much more minutes, but I would like to say that all the presentations have been very, very interesting. We've seen how creative industries can be adding value that goes beyond economic value, helping problems like loneliness or education. I'm an educator as well. So, and I see the impact it has in other areas of development, because we are not a separate human being. We are an organism, and your creativity needs to work with your analytics, and everything goes together. I do believe that we can be more inclusive with adding creative industries into the actual economic work that it hasn't been done yet. We need to integrate underrepresented groups. Melinda spoke about Black people. Black people in Peru are 2%, but I will speak with other minority here. It's women. We are a very men-focused country, and startups here in Peru, it's been checked that they generate 35% more money, and that they have a less level of bankruptcy when they have women in the board. It's been measured. So that's what I wanted to thank you all, and thank Rasmus, thank Creative Business Network.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank all the speakers.
Thank you, Fiorella, Mervi, Stefan, and Melinda. This is a conversation that is ongoing. I'll hope to see you soon, if not before then, in 3 weeks for the Bright 2020. And thank you, all of you, for being part of it. Have a good Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.